Hey everyone, David C. Andersen here, coming at you from the woods behind the Knife Center. And we're out here today because we're going to be showing you the CRKT Shock. Now, you might take a look at this and think it's a rather odd place for us to be showing you this knife because it is a rather high-end piece. But this knife actually features CRKT's Deadbolt lock, which is incredibly strong, and they've essentially dared us to come out here and see if we can get this knife to fail. So even though this knife is leading CRKT's charge into the upper market, we're out here to see what kind of torture we can subject it to. Let's see what it can do. So one thing to keep in mind, of all the stuff you see us doing out here today, we would never recommend you doing it at home, especially with a folder. But we're all suited up and ready to go, and we're doing this for science and for you guys. So this knife definitely is a large presence when you pull it out of your pocket. Part of that is it comes with a very big handle. Because of the shape, it actually allows you to choke back a little bit. And even though we never expect any of you guys to actually chop with this knife, that's what we're gonna do right now. First, some small branches just to see what it'll do. So big surprise, these handles are not exactly designed for chopping. As you can see, I was kind of having to readjust my grip just a little bit as I was wanting to slide forward. Again, can't really knock the knife for that, but it's just an observation. So I haven't really examined the edge up close just yet, but the XHP steel seems to be standing up very well, which is cool. This is about the first time I've really put this steel through its paces, and with this drop point profile and flat grind, it's a very sturdy application for us to be testing out. Ooh, that's nice and hard. So this section of wood that's down here is actually pretty hard. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna wail on it. And you can just hear from the sound how hard that is. I'm not really going for technique here. Normally I'd be cutting a V out of this, but we're just trying to put stress on this lock. So again, just wailing on it. So far the knife is holding up really well, including that great deadbolt lock. Haven't seen any nude play develop as we're doing all this stuff. Let's keep going. So another thing to file under the don't try this at home category. So overall so far, I'm actually really impressed with both the build quality of not just the knife, but also of that deadbolt system. This is of course not the only knife you can get that lock on, and that's great because this thing, even after throwing it up against a tree that many times, still operating like a charm. Another advantage of that deadbolt lock, especially in conjunction with these IKBS bearings, is not only is it a very smooth flipping knife, because of the way it's disengaged, you push this button here, actually centered around the pivot, allows you to open and close the knife very easily, and it keeps your fingers out of the path of the blade as well. So we've stressed the lock pretty good so far, but if there's any one thing we can still do that might get it to fail, it's this. We're gonna baton with this knife. That kind of activity is very strenuous on any knife, be it a fixed blade, but especially a folder. And that's gonna be a really good test, not only of the steel, but whether that lock can hold up to the shock and the stress. So we've got some beaver chewed logs back here. They're a little bit too big in diameter to go straight through the middle with this knife. So we're gonna take a bit off around the edges until we can. So overall, this knife held up really well to batoning actually. There's no new blade play that's developed, and the drop point blade shape on here actually works really well. Again, it's plenty thick for tasks like this. It's about 3/16 of an inch, and that flat grind coming up the blade really combines to make it a pretty efficient splitter if you're gonna use your folder for that sort of thing. So what are my thoughts on the CRKT Shock? I gotta tell you, I actually am pretty impressed with this. Not only have they built the knife very well with some really premium materials, it's not all show either. That blade steel, again, CTS XHP, has held up very well while we've been out here. I do have a little bit of edge deformation that came from when we were throwing it up against that tree for a while. Not unexpected, and I got no fault against the knife for that. And let's talk about that deadbolt lock. Granted, what we did here was not the most strenuous things you could do to a knife. The stuff we did with it today is more strain than any reasonable person will ever put on this knife. In my book, it's a winner. You can also get the CRKT Seismic with that deadbolt lock, but given the performance that we've seen out here today, we expect there to be more models in the future. If you want to get your hands on any of these knives or any of the other great knives that CRKT has to offer, you know what to do. Link below to head on over to KnifeCenter.com.